So Mr. S was a client of ours on our inpatient wards here. He was actually raised in foster homes and in institutions all around the Kingston area and Eastern Ontario. He has a whole variety of diagnoses that make him a very complicated clinical picture. A lot of what was happening in his life were behavioral issues, which made him not a good fit with living in the community. And what would happen is he would go from a CAS or a Children's Aid Society home to another foster home, and as caregivers became burnt out, his behaviors became increasingly concerning. All the while his mental illness was not being treated appropriately. So what ended up happening, as with lots of our clients, is he would end up coming here to our facility to live out his days because there was no good fit in the community. So in 1996 was one of his last admissions here, and he was admitted here for several years until he was 35 years old. Several attempts to have him discharged into the community with other teams failed. He would go in and into the community. A loose treatment plan would be put together, and it just never worked out. When he came to CHIT, we started working with him on the wards, and we started working with him not as a patient, but as a community member. So we started building rapport with Mr. S. We would go into the community with him, going to hockey games, going to restaurants, and out for coffee, and helping him understand how he fits into the community and what our role is going to be with him. It took a good year to build therapeutic rapport and some kind of relationship where he had the trust. I mean, this is a man that he was in over 40 or 45 different foster homes as a child and several institutions. He spent time in jail, a lot of time homeless as well. As well as severe mental illness, he has got an acquired brain injury and substance use issues. He has an underlying cognitive deficits that have resulted from the abuse he sustained from adults in his life as a child. So a traditional approach to treatment isn't going to work because there are so many things to consider. But at the heart of it, it was a therapeutic rapport with the staff and helping him understand what the boundaries are in the community. We started off when he was discharged, finally overcoming the fears that he had with going from an institution where he spent his whole entire life to this big loose community with seemingly no rules, which is very frightening for someone like Mr. S. When he was discharged, we changed our schedules around to meet his needs. So people would stay on later at night, start earlier in the morning, spending time with him during the morning for meal preparation, getting him organized for the day, helping him with the self-care, helping him learn how to be independent with the self-care, how to get along in the community, and how to have appropriate relationships with people in the community. As that kind of progressed along and his illness became more and more stable, he learned to build relationships with people in the community that weren't part of us, that weren't part of the mental health system. So we made sure we accessed like his local barbershop, his local bank, his local grocery store, helped him build relationships and learn how to build those relationships. And as time went on and his anxiety decreased, we had to intervene less and less and less. We received fewer calls from him. In the beginning, we are a 24-hour crisis team. We would be attending his home all the time. We would be there at 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd be there at supper time on the phone with him a great deal. But as he became more comfortable with the skill set, he relied on us less and less and less and less, and the treatment plan changed. We still see Mr. S 3 times a week for medications, but he's for the most part independent. He's very engaged with the psychiatrist and how his treatment goes. We still see him for cueing around self-care, but nowhere near to the extent that we had in the past. He volunteers at Queen's University. He has his own bank account that he manages independently with our support. He's independent with the self-care, with the exception of some cueing. And he's able to socialize without any intervention from us. He's got plenty of friends. He's well liked in this community. I think we'll always be involved with him because that's the nature of mental illness, and that's the nature of the mission here, is that there's no end date. We're not looking to cure something. This is a person that we'll likely support for the rest of his life. Well, traditionally, someone like Mr. S, when he's attempted to get into the community, it was a very medical model approach. and that would revolve around treating his symptoms. You've got symptoms A, B, and C, so we're going to treat them with medications and some therapies. But the piece that's missing in that is the recovery piece and the relationship building, and that understanding that just because somebody looks different and they have a difficult time, that they can't just come into the hospital, take some pills, and then go back into the community. That we need to treat somebody with compassion and with dignity, despite their abilities and their skills, and that this is a lifelong kind of a thing. And I think that's what the sisters had in mind when they began this whole mission, is that there are people in society that are being left out. There are many of us that can have an illness, we come into a hospital, we get a surgery, or we get treatment, and then we go through some rehab, and then we're back into the community, into our life. But they recognize that there's a whole segment of society that need a whole lot more than that. And people that experience severe mental illness and acquired brain injury, and people that are aging, those are the people that require long-term compassionate care, working in a side-by-side approach.